Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of In the Circle. Today, I'm joined by Isabel. Isabel, I'm not going to attempt to pronounce your last name because I know I will mess it up. So I'm going to allow you to, tell us your your full name, including your beautiful last name, and just give us a little bit of a background because I want our audience to understand one of the main reasons why we have you here today. I'm going to give a quick background at first, though. I heard Isabel speak to a different audience, and she spoke so well about money and the value of money and how to use money and money as a tool. And I know we're not going to talk only about money today, but I thought it was such a wonderful idea to have her join us in the circle and present some of this valuable information that I think a number of people are missing today. So without further ado, Isabel, please pronounce your beautiful last name and give us a just a quick introduction of who you are. Over to you.
Thanks a lot, Candice. It's such a pleasure to join you and your audience today. My full name is Isabel Gumeyi. So think about a gourmet chef, right?
Yeah.
Gourmet, gourmet. So I'm a technology enthusiast. I'm a technology consultant. That's my day job, and that's what I enjoy. But as part of that, another part of me, like everyone else, we're not made up of one part, right?
Yeah.
So I also enjoy seeing not just technology, but how in practical ways we're able to use finance, knowledge in finance to make our lives much better. So I'm all about community development. I do a lot of things with different organizations in different capacities. And at the end of the day, what's so fulfilling is to be able to say, we thought about something, we got a few people together, and we were able to produce something that made someone's life better, right? So
Yeah.
today, what we're hoping to share will help someone sleep a little bit better when they're thinking about their personal finances. I'm not a financial advisor, but certainly someone who's willing to share what I've learned from my own journey, and
Yeah.
hopefully something there will resonate to help your listeners.
Yes, absolutely. And the information that I've heard you presented in the past, it's not so much requiring a financial advisor input. A lot of it is very core based information that I think a lot of people may have missed out on or may not have recognized the importance of following some of those steps. And our parents, they taught us to how to be valuable assets to this world. But I think sometimes, as far as when it comes to money, they may have either neglected or unable to present the information in a way because they don't know either. So tell me a little bit more about some of those activities that you've been involved in that you mentioned before that will be valuable to help people. What are some of the things that make up the other parts of Isabel?
So one of the areas that I volunteer in is through my church. So last year, as you would know, we had the initial lockdown and all of that happened was in response to the pandemic threat for COVID-19. And one of the things that we had already started to do before the pandemic was a financial education, just volunteer series. So essentially, we had started it in our different churches, physically meeting together.
Yeah.
And then when the pandemic hit, we ended up having to restructure. So we moved it. We had a series of 6 episodes that we actually did on the radio on 87.9. And it was awesome because we were able to get different speakers and different individuals to talk about how to manage money for parents, for singles. And in a separate program, because I also was assisting in some of the singles department, we were actually able to get some perspective from a rabbi. Rabbi Daniel Lapin was able to join us and share from a Jewish perspective some of those lessons. So just being involved in a diversity of persons, right? We had everything from financial advisors to educators to just a wide variety of persons, investment managers, even we had one who joined us, just from the perspective of saying there's something you can learn from someone's lens, And just being able to be a catalyst for that, I consider that to be a blessing. So that's some of the volunteership activities that I've been involved in that are specific to finance. And of course, for those who know me, I'm quite of a tech fanatic, so I enjoy going into understanding more about blockchain and cryptocurrencies and just understanding where the world is going and what the opportunities are. And as we talk a little bit more, I'll also share a little bit of my own stories around some of the events of my life that have taught me that it's important to make time to learn about some of these things.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And we're going to transition into that, but I want to marry that to, the importance of volunteering, because I think it is such a vital thing to do as part of your life. Where did you learn the concept from? I remember growing up seeing my mother volunteer quite a bit. So naturally it came to me, okay, I need to give back. I need to volunteer. I need to tithe my time to support others. Where did the value of volunteering come from for you?
As children, you're voluntold, right, what to do. You're voluntold to go help your uncle, your aunt. You had to go to the country every season to go help out at the farm. So you're kind of voluntold. And as the years go by, it translates, right? Because when you go to school, they tell you, oh, there's a children's home that needs to be supported, and there's these orphanages, there's all of these different places where there's someone less fortunate than you. And what they taught us is you have something to give. And I think when you're young, you don't realize you have anything because you're like, I have no money, I have no nothing. But they actually teach you that you have one thing which is so valuable, which is time. So they teach you to sow your time into things that are tangible and helpful for others. So I definitely have to thank my parents, and I'll quote her, my mom, I love to call her Madam SC, because there's so many chronicles that we've learned from her. And even my grandparents were the same, right? So you find that anytime they saw you idling around, you'll be put to work. So volunteering, if you didn't volunteer, they would give you something to do, and it just stuck with you. So what I've tried to do as I get older now is to say, what are the things that I'm more interested in, and how can I use what I'm more interested in and maybe knowledgeable in to help others? Because then you add more value, right, than in the peripheral areas where you're not as strong.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And as we start touching a bit on money and the value of money and the purpose of money and the tool, etc. For me, I remember reading a book. Someone gave me a book that I read, and it just opened my eyes, and I went, oh my goodness, I've been following this status quo. I've been going on this, especially if you're from the islands, it's important you get an education, which is good, but you get the education, you get a job, you work there, then you try and save, then you retire, and that's it. There's, you buy the house, and there's this system that is kind of in place that you go on automatic. And when I read that book, it took me off that automatic, kind of cycle. What happened? What happened in your life where you started to go, wait a minute, there may be a different way. There may be something I'm missing. Is there some information that I'm not gathering or gaining at this time that I need to find out more about? What was that? What was that catalyst in your life? And how did that take you on that journey to really want to grasp and understand money and how to engage with it?
Well, I think to tell the story better, let's just imagine with me. It's payday. You're excited. You've been waiting all 30 days for this day. You're in the office like extra early. You're there like 6 a.m., whatever, 7, whatever. And you're rushing to check your email to see that, that email from HR that has your pay slip, your pay stub, right? And when you open that email, you realize it says something very, very different from what you expected. It says only a small percentage of your income for this month will be paid in cash. The rest will be given to you in the form of a food hamper. You are going to get 15 kgs of fish, a sack of potatoes, millie meal, cooking oil, all of this stuff. And that's your salary. And that's the end of the email. And so you read that and you think, okay, hold that thought. You wake up one day and the news heading is saying your friend's bank just went into bankruptcy. His entire life savings was in that bank. No explanation, no forewarning to the public that occurred. And he calls you and says, this just happened to me. Like, what do you say? Right? Like,
Wow.
what do you say? You go to the supermarkets don't have anything on the shelves. You know, to fill up your car with gas, you have to be up all night. You know, so I wish these were stories that never happened, but unfortunately they did happen. And this was around 2008, 2000, you know, between in that time frame where on the western side of the world there was all of that financial crisis. But I was on the other side of the world in Southern Africa, and inflation was skyrocketing. And so for the company that I worked for at that time to give us the hampers, it's not because they didn't want to give us the cash. It's because their clients, we were consultants as well, right? But their clients couldn't pay in cash. So the client said to them, hey, I can pay you in goods because I produce these goods. I can give you these goods. And the company said, well, it's better we have something because then we have nothing to give our employees.
Wow.
And then when you get it, you're like, I never thought I would get to this point, but this is actually a blessing in disguise because the supermarket has nothing, right? So you turn around from that and you say, wow, this is a lesson. I'm in the lesson of life right now. And if I don't get this lesson now, it's going to come back in a different way. And I'll be just as shocked and twice as upset because it's the second time around, you know. So for me, that 2008, 2009, that financial crisis timeframe was really a wake-up call. And it really spoke to me in terms of being proactive about what you can control. You can't control everything. And we learned that, right? But it helped me to understand that there are some things that I can control. You know, the Bible talks about a righteous man leaves an inheritance for his children's children, leaving a legacy. You know, so it really got me thinking about what can I control? Is there a way to be financial independent? And what does independent look like? What does it mean to not put your eggs in one basket? What does it mean to really leave a legacy when you can't even feed yourself, right? So for me, it was really that external force of, oh my goodness, did HR just send that email? This is real.
Wow.
To how long can this be sustained for? And practically, how do we avoid getting into this situation? So that's just a snapshot of what began, I think, really to catapult my journey to understanding what financial literacy really meant. And it's a journey, is my view.
Yes, yeah. So tell us a little bit more about that journey, because you must have gone through some steps between getting that letter from HR to now talking about cryptocurrency. So give us some insights about that journey, just from the perspective for anyone that's listening, that's saying, you know what, I'm trying to get my finances in order. I know this is not a financial, advice, interview, but they're trying to get their money together. They're having challenges paying their bills. They're living paycheck to paycheck. You mentioned some words that I think for some people that have not really grasped the concept as yet may be new. You mentioned things like not having only one source of income. You mentioned things about leaving things for generations after you. There's so many concepts that you just added in that short statement that you made. Could you touch a little bit more on some of those as you journeyed from HR to crypto?
So probably the best place to start is really with the power of a vision.
Yes.
Because the word says without a vision, we perish. And something about writing the vision down, engraving it on a tablet, making it plain so that anyone who reads it can run with it, I think it's fundamental to anything more that we can talk about. Because if it's not clear what I want and it's not clear what I'm working towards, the motivation, the consistency, the deliberateness, all of that gets lost, right? In the true
Yes.
hustle and bustles of life. One of the things that I struggled with doing is actually being clear. What is my specific, measurable, realistic, time-bound goal that I have for myself?
Right.
Really speaking financially. Because as a child, you are a recipient of other people's visions and you're a recipient of other people's goals. But
Yeah.
when you become an adult, people ask you where you want to work, what you want to do. And up to that point, other people have been making those decisions for you. And so when it comes to wealth management or finances, it's the same concept. If I'm not able to articulate how I want my life to be in one line or two lines, they say if you can explain something to a 5-year-old, you've got it, right? If you
Right.
can't, if you can't simplify and say, well, excuse me, in 10 years from now, or by the time I turn 40, I would like to have a house, a car, or this, or whatever finance means to you, right? Because we know wealth means different things to different people, but
Yes.
not being clear about that beginning in terms of what are you working towards. It's almost like you're running a race and you have no ending. You just keep going and going, and then sometimes you get just discouraged and just stop and sit because you don't have anywhere to go.
Mm.
So the first step for me was really defining what the vision was. And the vision, because of what had happened, was how can we be more in control of the income that we earn? And that's where the idea of, okay, how much control do you want? Okay, maybe I had $1, but maybe at that time, if I had $100, my life would have been a lot better, even when I got that HR email, because maybe they gave me groceries I didn't need, right? But maybe if I'd had the $100, that would have been enough. So the $100 becomes my initial starting point. And then, but I'm not chasing the $100. I'm chasing what I can do with the $100.
Mm.
Oh, this means now I can buy my mom that purse she wants, or I can buy my kids this, so I can do this and that. That's the vision now. There's some gentleman that I follow out of the US who was saying one of his visions was he never wanted his children to pay for college. So his vision was to be able to pay for his college fees. I can tell you, growing up in Southern Africa, our parents paid for our universities. That was a normal part of our lives. We didn't have student debt, right? So, but then when you come to this side of the world and there is debt, you end up just taking all this money if you don't have a vision for what you're going to use it for. So I would start with that. The quick thing is have a vision, be very clear about where you want to be and where you want to get to. Write it down. There's power in writing it down.
Yes.
Make it simple as possible. 2 lines, this is where I want to get to by this time. Once you have that, then you can set up realistic goals and say, a year from now, 6 months from now, 3 weeks from now, every day. Because then you start to realize the value of time. If you think about Usain Bolt or all of those athletes, right? What do? They know the Olympics is in 4 years. They train. They're looking for the best trainers, the best food, the best sneakers. They've got that vision. They're not going to sleep for 3 years and then say, oh, only my, 6 months before the Olympics. They don't do that. And yet we do that for the Olympics of our lives, right? We do that. We don't practice. We don't consult the experts who know better than us. We're not looking at our lives and saying, what is taking money from me? Is it because I'm sick all the time? Why am I sick all the time? Maybe I'm not eating right. Maybe that's what I need to fix first. Maybe I'm not sleeping well. Maybe I'm not exercising. Just being able to take ourselves as a company or as an athlete and say, I need to build myself the same way if I was, Apple or Samsung or whatever, or Usain Bolt, and just treating our lives with the same level of value and intentionality. So
Yes.
that's where I start. Yeah.
Absolutely. And even with intentionality, and you mentioned, food, what you put in your body, all those are part of that puzzle that creates that one being, whereby your finances, your income, etc., it's just a part of that. And it's so funny because it's a vital part that can affect so many other things. So as far as, there's a word sometimes when I mention it to people, it sounds like it's a curse word. And it's like, oh my goodness, I just can't do it. It's not for me. And it's the word budgeting. You would think it's a 4-letter word. What are your thoughts on budgeting as part of how you manage your money, how you manage your financing?
I would say budgeting is synonymous with self-discipline, right?
Mm.
Because you're putting yourself under submission to something that you are actually creating for yourself. Where we struggle a lot is where we don't buy into the vision that the budget is trying to create. That's the challenge. Because the budget is simply saying, I'm being accountable, right? What I'm bringing in must be less than what I'm spending for me to have excess, right? And the excess becomes your savings. So if the vision that I have is I want to have $100 by the end of February, my income coming in is $120. And if I'm fighting to stay under $100, it means I really wasn't serious about saving $100 by the end of February. I haven't committed to the vision as yet. So that's one part of what I would say. The other part of, which is more of the discipline side of it, is it's anything that your body is doing for the first time. You're learning to run a 5K, you're learning to do this. It's hard.
Yes.
Right, it's hard. And if you don't have a self-awareness, right? So self-awareness is, I can discipline myself. Then sticking to your own budget might be hard. I'll give you a different example. Most people can't wake up on the weekend to go anywhere or do anything. But if they had to go to work for 7 o'clock or 6 o'clock, they would be there, right? So what does that show you about human behavior? It shows that sometimes when you pursue someone else's vision, you're more committed than when you're pursuing your own.
I'm sorry,
right?
I'm gonna interrupt you right there because that needs to be on a t-shirt. Repeat what you just said. That is a solid statement. Repeat that for me, please.
Well, if you aren't able to pursue your own vision, then you might need to essentially be under someone else's vision, which is not ideal, right? You need to be more faithful to your own vision than you are to somebody else. Because the moment you can't tell yourself something and be faithful to it, it already means you need to come under subjection for someone else. Now, if we can take that in a different way to make it work in your favor, right? I'll give you an example. Might not be a huge fan of, eating my vegetables, but I have a friend who's vegan. And I love my vegan friend because every time I'm with her, she will be raving about the latest vegetable recipe and her latest vegan ice cream that she's made and going on and on. My exposure to her and making myself accountable to her in certain areas, right, helps me. So if I tell her, for example, I want to eat my veggies 3 times this week, can you call me to check up on me? She will call me. In fact, she might drive to my house, which is a bigger problem. She knows where I live and deliver the veggies, right? So it then means coming back to self-awareness. If I'm unable to motivate myself, if I've got a clear vision and I'm failing to motivate myself, I need an accountability partner. Yeah. And my partner cannot be my equal. The partner has to be someone who is stronger than me, who is pulling me up, right? Who's pulling me up and saying, come up higher. If I'm training for, if I'm saying to myself, I want to, get fit or whatever, I need a friend who's fitter than me, right? I need someone else who goes to the gym every day and who's obsessed, who will make me feel bad for my 30 minutes. But when I've done an hour, I'm not going to do 5 hours like they do, but they'll push me to get there better. So I think being aware of your strengths and your weaknesses helps you to then be committed, coming back to your budget question now, to say, if I meet with a financial advisor every 3 months, if that's what I need, I don't have to, but if that's what I need, to shame me into where are you, right? For them to ask me where I am with my own goals, if that's what's going to help me, I have to do it. Like, we have to be honest with ourselves in terms of our strengths and weaknesses. The other thing you can then do and say, okay, if doing your whole budget at the end of the day is hard, then put safeguards for yourself, right? Dave Ramsey talks a lot, this is a guy out of the US, talks a lot about the envelope system. Putting cash in different envelopes, your shopping envelope, your food envelope, your fun envelope. And he says, whenever you want to do something, you just pick that envelope. If the envelope is empty, too bad, right? That's it. That's it. That's it.
I appreciate the envelope example. I remember when I've been married 20 some odd years, but for a vast number of those years, we use that envelope strategy, because when it's done, it's done. So it's interesting. It definitely helps you with a level of control and discipline, as you mentioned. And I think that's a great segue into saving. Like, I'm always surprised of the statistics around the number of people that do not save, and I think a lot of people are realizing and recognizing the importance of saving. Especially with this new crisis that is in play. So, what are your thoughts about saving?
It's really good that you brought out the pandemic, right? Because what we learned from that is it's really, really challenging to know which industry is going to remain afloat and which one isn't.
Yes.
And so the power of saving, in my mind, is really two-sided. It's from the emergency fund lens to basically say 3 to 6 months worth of expenses. You want to have that money in liquid form, in actual cash form, or if you can't hold it in cash because your hands are slippery, put it in a term deposit, something that's not, it's not about the interest you're going to get from it. It's about accessibility of that amount to help you in an emergency.
Mm-hmm.
And when it comes to emergencies as well, it's not just you, right? It could be emergencies with the people that depend on you,
Yes.
right? So you want to make sure that you incorporate that as well. And the other side of saving, I would say, is also a backup emergency fund. This is more the 6 months to 1 year for the unexpected. So I would include things like if you're trying to buy a house, it's probably good to have 6 months to a year of other funds that are aside, so that if you need to pay your mortgage down, you have the savings for that, or something else came up, you are really ready for it. It comes back from planning, and when you align it with your goals, it keeps you motivated. If you said to yourself, if I have 3 to 6 months worth of expenses, then if it's going to take me between now and end of June to get there, it means from July you can start saving for your vacation. You can do things in a way that allow you to be motivated. So I think it's, when you talking about savings, you want to integrate that in your budget, right? You want to be realistic. How much can you save each month? And sometimes it might require you to work 2 jobs or 3 jobs to be able to speed up that saving process. And it's fundamental, in my view, to start with the saving before you start investing, because the saving is really that cushion that you have. And with cushion comes a measure of clarity. It reduces your stress immediately, and it allows you, you talked about being married. If your husband is making investments and you know that you have a 3 to 6 month or 6 month to a year cushion, you'll be more comfortable with taking some of those risks if something else was to happen. So I think saving is the basic first step. And the classic example of that is really Joseph in the Bible, where we see him, during 7 years of plenty, he went through every district and they had granaries full of grain that they put aside. In the 7 years of plenty, they could sell that grain and essentially send it out, sell it out to other people. But it had to start with that vision of, what do we do in the time of plenty? We have to save, like the ant. Even the ant is wise. It saves for the winter. So I think it's about accessibility and availability when we're talking about saving, and not to confuse the interest and profitability angle with simply being able to survive. Because at that point, if you don't have the money set aside, it doesn't matter how much interest you could have gotten. The money just doesn't exist.
Yes, and savings too, because I guess the concept around it, because I've seen some ads on television, for example, that says, there's this insurance that you can pay for each month in case your appliances break down or in case your car breaks down. And the first time I saw that, I was like, but why would you need to pay these people money for when something breaks down? And it's then understanding that the concept around, again, as you're saying, if you're not putting money aside for that emergency fund, if you're not putting money aside in case something goes wrong, then you find that you're in a situation where, yes, this may sound viable to you. Okay, so if I pay this company a little bit of money each month, when I do need to have something done, I can go and pull on that. So it's interesting how businesses are created around people that are probably not saving. There's a discussion that I had with my brother and also my son the other day, because we were talking about people that, you think it's really good that you live within your means. And so there was this little discussion that went on that I said, actually, no, I don't think that's the best thing to do. I don't think you should live within your means. And they're like, what? I'm like, no, you should live below your means, because if you live below your means, I feel that's an opportunity to help you as well as far as savings and then moving on to investing. What are your thoughts around that? I mean, is it best to live below your means? And if so, what's your take on it?
You sound like my mom when you say that. That's something that she would have said. You want to live below your means, absolutely, is my view. And or said it in a different way, and this might again be Dave Ramsey who said this first: live like no one else so you can later live like no one else.
Yes.
You are living below your means for a time to reach your goal. Once your goal is reached, then you can start living like that crazy person. You've heard of, if you might be familiar with the FIRE movement out of the US, Financial Independent Retire Early. A lot of their members are retiring in their 30s because they basically, from the time they were in their 20s, like your son, buying a house or making these investments, they were living, some of them almost frugally, right? Like really living the basic expenses that they needed to, so that by 37 or 40, early 40s, they're ready to retire, right? And everybody now looks at them and says, hey, how come you're retiring now? But they were living like no one else then. So now they can live like no one else. So I think there's value in that because it allows you, again, to be more proactive, driven by the vision that you have. And that will look different for different people. It could mean you buy a secondhand car, but for someone else, a secondhand car might not work for them, for their lifestyle, right? If it breaks down, it might not be good for them. So it might not be in every area of your life that you live below your means, but it's certainly where it matters based on your vision. It's then saying, is this the time where we need to have one family car versus two? Is this the time where we need to cut back on vacations for the next year so that we take that excess money and we put it towards canceling or completing this debt, right? So there's definitely value in my view of looking through your portfolio and saying, or your life, and say which areas are better. It could be that I don't buy myself new clothes, but I pay for a full medical assessment down on my body. Because if you get the full ones, those ones can cost a couple of $1,000s. And maybe you only do that once, once every 5 years, but you've basically invested in your own health while you are, so you're living below your means in the fashion area or in the travel area, but you're then enriching yourself in your health. So just finding that balance, I think, is important.
Yes, absolutely. And I know you had mentioned, as I said, my brother bought his house at 22, and he will be the first to tell you, if he will compound exactly what you're saying. He is frugal. And he makes no bones about it, because he had to be frugal to do what he's doing. And because he made that first step on understanding the benefit of frugality, he's just continuing on that process. So it's so interesting that you said that, because that's exactly what he did. He really deprived himself of a number of things to be able to get to where he wants. But again, that's his goal. And it's important, as you said, to know and understand what your goal is. So let's touch a little bit on cryptocurrency, because we get so many different opinions on it. I was looking at a friend's podcast the other day, and she had someone on there that said, stay away from it. Crypto is up right now. I have a little app that I play around with it a little bit, in particular Bitcoin. And it's doing fabulous now. And then now I've also heard, I think on the news, I think it was either Visa or MasterCard that is now going to start accepting a little bit. So I don't think it's going anywhere. But what have your research shown, for regarding crypto, for those that are listening in or have no idea what crypto is? Let's start there.
It's definitely a buzzword now. What I would like to say as a backdrop to all of this is anything that you invest in has a risk.
Yes.
It's all about measuring the risk and quantifying that risk. And the first thing you will learn in investment 101 is don't invest in anything you don't understand. or at least don't over-invest in anything you don't
Yes.
understand.
The stock market, I think there's like a secret play card that, sometimes I wonder, I'm like, do I even have any sort of control on this? Like, probably not. But you still invest in it because it's an option and you're seeing what's happening. So I completely agree with what you're saying.
Yeah. So I would say with anything, and especially with when you think about the risk spectrum, you've got the low risk investment. A lot of things like the term deposits we talked about, gold and so forth, tend to be in there. You can argue whether it's low or moderate. Moderate would be maybe the real estate, everything is going well. And then the high risk is new things that are coming up that haven't yet matured to be proven to work in the long term. A lot of the things that have been around, like the stocks and bonds, is because they've been there for years. And you've watched their performance over years, and I don't know, 60 or 70% of the time exactly, it will, go down, it will come up. But if you ride the wave and you don't sell when it's low, right, you will be able to ride some gains. So it's the same thing. Cryptocurrencies are essentially digital money, right?
Yes.
So there's no physical touching of it. It's based on a lot of mathematical and cryptographical concept, but what it is, it's a representation of value. What you transfer to me, and we record that transaction on something that sits on the internet. They call that the blockchain. It's essentially a ledger, a database, where no one person controls. So it's all about decentralized money, right? Or decentralized economy, where no one person can control or go back and say, I'm double spending, or go back and say, hey, Candace said you never gave her that, you never passed on anything to her, you lied, or this and that. You've got a record of it that's transparent, that's long lasting. But like with any ecosystem, if you think about the parallel with regular money, what makes it valuable? It's people's perception. One, but two, it's also the governments that support it and the economies of those countries, right, that support. Think about the pound or the US dollar and all of those economies. And all of those things are great, right? In this economy, in this blockchain cryptocurrency economy, the whole concept is decentralization. We don't want any one person to have control. We don't want any, coming back to the initial story that I gave you at the beginning of my friend going to the bank and the bank being closed. I'm not saying every bank is going to close, because that's not it. That there was a specific circumstance that surrounded that bank. The concept is simply saying, is there a way that we can create an economy where value can be exchanged from one person to the next without an intermediary? That intermediary, or at least reduced intermediary, that makes the process faster, cheaper. It's recorded in a way that all of us who are participating in this ecosystem can go back at any point in time and verify that the transaction occurred, we're all happy with what happened. And in so doing, we allow more people who are previously unbanked, because there's so many millions of people who don't have bank accounts, right now. They are out of this ecosystem. They are still buttering together. And even if you move away from currency, because it can be argued if it's a currency, if you just think about transferring something from you to me, I'm buying land from you, I'm buying a car from you. Can we record it somewhere, on this blockchain, which is essentially a database that sits on the internet? We can write rules in it, which is what we call smart contract. So it will say, for example, you bought travel insurance from me, and if your flight doesn't go, the contract will say, hey, we got the update from the airline, the flight didn't go, we're going to immediately pay Candace straight away. You don't have to call me to then say, hey, I didn't fly. Oh no, then prove to me that the flight, no. All of that ecosystem works with data sharing and data. There's just a lot that goes into it to make life more efficient, faster, cheaper. And is it going to take over the whole world? I don't think so. I think it will work in parallel with what is there. I think it has a purpose, it has a value. I'm a big enthusiast, but I'm also a realist, right? Because part of how I think about any new technology is, yes, there's some significant changes it will bring, but it will also bring some improvements to the things that are there. Central banks now are talking about central bank digital currencies. Governments now are talking about how can they digitize their own currencies. So they're improving based on this concept of seeing a parallel system that works. And the bottom line is not everyone uses the same currency around the world now, right, either. So why would we want to assume that everyone in the world will adopt one crypto? Already the crypto market is proving that that's not true. We have over 1,000 cryptocurrencies, right? Me and my family could create a crypto tomorrow, right? The Gooms crypto, right? So my take on it is it going to succeed? I believe it is. How will it succeed? By adding value. If it doesn't add value to our lives, it shouldn't succeed. Does today's dollar value depict what it is? It depicts what the market says it's worth. But if you think about, in the end, decentralized finance is building a parallel system where it will allow you to get loans, to get mortgages, insurance, everything else that you get in the current financial system, in the current centralized financial system, in an alternative way, as an alternative. And you choose at the end of the day which one. And until it becomes widely accepted, people will always be moving back and forth between regular fiat currency with cryptocurrency. So there will be a dual, that's how I see it. I see it as a dual ecosystem where if you want to go to the doctor's office, the doctor might not accept all the Bitcoin that you have. So you will have to sell something, right? You want to get your checkup done. Who knows? They might, maybe in a few years from now. I see it as a high risk investment. And I would encourage that anyone who puts any money into it should only put the money that you're willing to lose. So you can sleep at night. If all you can is $10, I actually had a friend of mine the other day and they said, $10 is what they can lose. And I said, that's perfectly fine. You can take your $10 and you can buy, there's so many cryptocurrencies now that are less than $1. They're in the sense. So you could actually own 10 units of X, or you could own 0.00.
Yep, 0.00045. I looked at it the other day, I'm like, what? That's how much?
Exactly. And depending on how financially savvy you are, there's so many ways of playing in the space in a way that you can manage. If you're a trader already, you can trade Bitcoin. You don't have to own any of it. You can just trade it. If you're already investing in shares, right, of companies, you can buy all of these exchanges, for example. Some of the participants in this blockchain ecosystem are actual companies that you can buy a share for. So a lot of them do initial coin offering, initial token offering. You can buy those and you don't have to own any crypto at all, but you own a percentage of the company itself that's a participant in the system.
In that field, yes.
Yeah, so I think technology, health, telecoms, all of these are will continue to be emerging industries. If we learned anything from 2020, anything that's technology based is here to stay, right? So the more you can invest in yourself for you to learn, right? This is now the time for you to upskill yourself, understand from your current pivot point, whatever knowledge you have, how do you build on that? And how do you then manage your risk? Don't listen to anyone who tells you to put your whole life savings into this. No, don't do that. Only put the amount that you're willing to lose. And if you see it double, quadruple, that's fine. Manage your risk as you go along. If you see it plunge down, you only lose the money when you sell. So if it plunges down and you don't need the money, don't sell. Just wait again and until it goes up to an acceptable level for you and sell it.
Yes, that is absolutely some solid advice. And I like the fact that you made it clear that, yes, it is a high risk. It's new, it's emerging, it is high risk. But if you have a small amount, absolutely, you want to go ahead and start playing in the field to kind of see. And a small amount is $10, as you mentioned, is absolutely more than enough. So for those people that are not at, that level yet, and they're still trying to kind of pull themselves through, especially with 2020, let me rephrase my question. If you were, what's the best advice that you could present to anyone that has struggled through this whole crisis that is currently happening, in particular from a monetary perspective?
A reality check, in my view, is always the best. And it's very hard when you're going through a difficult time to be honest. And one of the things we learned, and I'll just go back to my HR example, when HR was telling us we're only getting a small percentage in cash and the rest in food hampers, we had to do a reality check of what is my actual cost? What is the cost to be me? I need to know what that cost to be me is, right? So if the cost to be me, and by that I mean, what is my, if I own the house, or if I have a mortgage, if I have a car, if I take a bus to work, or what is my food, water, like I need to be able to write all of that down and come up with, this is my list of the cost to be me. Okay, off that cost, is there anything that I can cut back on? That, because this is what I can control, right? Okay, maybe I'm buying, I know a lot of people drink coffee. Maybe I'm buying coffee every day. Okay, if I saved and bought coffee maybe once a week or whatever, is there anything at all that I can cut back on? Then I'm looking for what I can control. And then on the other side, right, on the left side, I've got all of the cost to be me. On the right side, I will have, what is the income that I have coming in, if at all, right? So what is my difference there? Because before I know what I'm dealing with, I'm trying to deal with an elephant, but I'm not looking at it, right? So I need to be able to slice that and say, okay, this is the current cost to be me, this is my income. And then what is the difference between that? Maybe I'm in the negative, okay? Then I have to, if I haven't included it already, I have to include what I owe other people. Yeah. Right? That's important too, right? We have to be people who are honest and people of integrity. So what do I owe other people? And so of the people that I owe, are they individuals? Is it my friend? Is it my cousin? Can I talk to them and say, hey, let me make a payment plan, right, to you? I'm going to be honest. This is what I can do. And then I go back and say, okay, I now know what the cost is monthly to be me. I now know what I can earn. I now know what I owe and who I owe. How can I increase now what I'm bringing in to reduce that deficit? And part of it could be, maybe I need to sell something. Maybe I have a new phone. Maybe that's what I need to sell, right? Do I need to live with a cheaper phone until I bridge the gap to where I'm more comfortable, right? Do I need, is there anything in my control that I can sell? I think I had one presenter say, sell so much that the kids think they're next, right? Like you're, yeah, is there anything I can sell? Because it will give me some sort of, recurring income. If there isn't anything I can sell, then the next thing I think about is my gift makes room for me and brings me before kings, right? That's what the word says. So what are the gifts that I have that I can monetize? Okay, maybe I can mow the lawn every Sunday morning and get that. Maybe I can go and work extra at whatever because I've got this gift. I have, maybe I can do a massage. Maybe that's what I need to be spending money on. Maybe I can do this, maybe I can do that. It's just looking through and seeing, is there any other way of increasing my income? If there's two of us or three of us, what can we do together? Because our gifts would be different, right? What can we do together? There are many, many stories of families where they ended up starting a family business online. A lady was saying she started her business. I think she was knitting something. She got her kids to dress as the models, she makes them take pictures. That's it, right? You can do so much online. There's so many online opportunities there that are there that never used to be before. We all know people who've made money from teaching people English. You can go on different websites nowadays and you can be an executive assistant online for someone. You can write minutes for them. It's now exploring what you can do based on the skills you have, the time you have, and the stress level you can manage. Because some people can't manage physically going somewhere, but if they were to sit down and proofread someone's thesis paper, and there's so many websites now. When I was doing my thesis, they said they will proofread it for you. Proofread it in 24 hours, you pay them $50, right? You just needed a second pair of eyes, right? I'm not saying that's what someone has to do, but depending on your skill set and what you're comfortable with, you are then looking to say, is there anywhere where you can add your income? And then from then you start building that emergency fund, right? To say, how can you shelter yourself? Maybe it's at your workplace, there's an opportunity for a promotion. Maybe that's what you need to work towards, right? But realistically, is that going to take 6 months or a year? It might take too long, right? So it might be your 6-month long-term plan, and that's okay. But again, you align that with your vision to say, okay, for me to be ready a year from now or 6 months from now, maybe I need to learn Spanish. Maybe that's what you need to learn, or maybe you need to do this, and you start to see yourself as agile, as flexible, as a person who can adapt. Sometimes we have to be out of our natural inclination to get to where we want to be, because everything we were doing got us into that position. It means we have to do something different in order for us to get to a different result. And then after that, once that result is reached and you're earning more than you're spending, then if the lifestyle you had before was working for you, and that's where you want to go, you can do that. Or you decide that what you're doing now is worth keeping, then you've got the freedom to make that decision.
Yeah.
But I think we underestimate the one thing we all have as human beings, which is equal. We all have 24 hours, all of us.
Yes.
And that 24 hours is gold. It's gold. Yeah. It's a treasure.
It is. It's how you use it. Those are some very solid points. And I like the fact that you said, it's the reality of what it is, and analyzing the situation. Sometimes I feel like we get paralyzed because it seems so big, as you said, that elephant. But how do you how do you slice that elephant in different pieces? There was something I was listening to the other day that they said, which I think relates great to what you were just saying. A lot of times we make excuses to say, oh, we just don't have the time. And with this whole crisis that taken place, we were forced. Time is there because a lot of people may not be traveling, or some people may not be working, or so now you have the time. If you transition through this time period without at least learning something new or improving your skills in some way, then you have really missed out. You have lost some valuable time. And I think a second point that they'd make, all the excuses that you've made in the past, now you don't have it. So is it the fact that you're not motivated, you're not pushing yourself enough? Because time is no longer an excuse. So it was just so pertinent when you made that comment that, that connected for me indeed. So is there any valuable information that you think that you can share for anyone that's listening that, you wished I had asked you as we come to a close around all this valuable details that you've shared? Is there something that you wished I'd asked that you think is going to be pertinent for our audience?
One thing that comes to mind is a reminder that don't be afraid to fail. When you try something new, it's scary, it's challenging, and a lot of people, even as we're talking about the pandemic and having more time, we are afraid to fail, and because of that, we then don't try. But if we go back to what we talked about earlier in terms of managing your risk, so what if you start, knitting jerseys and nobody buys them? You could give some of them away as gifts to your friends when they have babies, and you cut back your baby spending. There's different ways of trying out a new business in a way that tests the market, that you can manage, that you can use to manage the fear factor. Because a lot of us don't want to try something different because we're afraid it will fail. But sometimes you have to do it again and again. You wrote the budget down, you stayed on track for 2 months. In the third month, life happened, it was your birthday, you turned 30, and you went off the rails. Come back and try again. There's so much power in that persistence and in that trying again, and in forming a support group that's actually focused on what you're trying to do. No man is an island. There's someone else who's trying to do the same thing, and they've probably already got it, or at least some learnings, right, in that path. So I am a strong believer that we all have gifts that we were born with, that we were endowed with. It's only because a lot of us were used to running in one lane for so long that you don't realize that in the other lanes, there's things for you. Someone used the expression that said, if a duck and they said a duck and a lion were in the same race together, the duck will lose all the time. But throw them in the water, right? It's now in its race. It's going to go off. And a lot of us have been in that line of this is just the way it is. But no, we are actually putting more limitations on ourselves. So I would say the broader we think of ourselves as having multiple gifts, multiple talents that are like plants that need to be watered. Some things come naturally. Some things that people will tell us like, hey, you know, Candace, you're so good at styling your hair. How do you do that? And people keep asking you how you do it. To you, it's not a thing,
Yeah.
right? But who knows? Somebody could be willing to pay you $5 to teach them how to style your hair, you know. And then you look, you know, it could be anything. Is what I'm saying. Some could be gifts, some could be talent, some could be hobbies that you just enjoy. But at the end, I believe we are all blessed with a gift that we can give to the world. And some of those gifts will help us cover our financial challenges. Some of those other ones simply make us happy and reduce the stress in our lives and help us to be a blessing to other people. So we want to keep that balance between the monetary side and the life side, just to enjoy your life. But at the end of the day, I think it boils down to that one thing. Try as much as possible to be living your vision and not be spending your entire life fulfilling somebody else's, because then you will feel more fulfilled. And you don't know how many people are waiting to be inspired by you. You know, how many people now we have inspired us simply because they stepped out. We talk about Martin Luther King. We talk about all these greats who went against the grain, and look at the impact. Rosa Parks, all of these, I'm mentioning them because it's Black History Month, right? So February. And there's so many legends that we can talk about around the world, of any race, of any culture, that were committed and they stayed true to what they felt was important to them. And so in the end, we can do all things, is my belief, and tapping into that faith, that hope, and just not giving up, even when you've tried it, but knowing it's worth it, not just for you and for the people around you, but for your children or your generation that comes after you. Because that was the legacy. I just remember that you asked about the legacy, right? To say it's leaving something that the other people who come behind you can pick up, and they're not starting from scratch. We're standing on the soldiers of giants, is essentially what legacy is all about.
Yeah, yeah. But you know, I think we don't get a chance to do that as often as we should. You know, there are other cultural, even as you said, Black History Month, for, you know, for Black people in particular, a lot of times, especially in the US, you know, that legacy to be left behind, the ratio is so small. And I think it's something we really need to think about. Um, there is a story, Isabel, that you told on another chat that I was on, that, you know, even for me that think, yes, you know, there's always something to learn, but this was something I learned, and it's going to be fun. It's probably a story you probably don't even remember. But I think when you were talking about budgeting, and I'm just going to close off with this because I think it was just so pertinent. You said that if someone, like a friend of yours, was getting married or something, and you'd already budgeted for that month, and it's this last minute thing that you have to come up with the gift. Go ahead and tell that story, because it was so pertinent for me to realize the importance of trying to, you know, to stay the course, you know, to be able to make things, to make your goals and your dreams a reality, for, you know, because that's one thing, but it could be six of those things that could have thrown you completely off your plan. So go ahead. That was a very impactful story for me. I'd love for you to share it.
Sure. So one of my, and this happens quite often, is either somebody's getting married or someone is having a baby. Those are usually the outflows that come on some sort of cycle. And when I looked at my budget, I just didn't have the money, or I would have had to take money that was meant for something else to buy the gift. And I had to tell them, I'm sorry, I'm going to put you on a list, and when I have the funds, I will buy your gift. And I did that for 2 or 3 individuals. I ended up giving them their gift about almost 6 months after. And essentially by that time, the baby had already grown. So I got them an older baby gift.
Yes.
And the response, it was a little bit stressful for me to say that, but I had to be honest with them. And I felt that if they truly valued who I am, they would understand me as well. And when I went to them with the gift 6 months later, they said to me, I am so glad you came. And I'm so appreciate, because now a lot of the baby gifts that I did get, my child has outgrown them. And so now your gift is more timely
Yes.
because it's come now. But the concept for me was twofolded. One is I had to discipline myself to stick within my own, this is the framework I've made for myself. I have to stick with it. And two, I had to be honest, because a lot of times we want to impress other people, but sometimes we want to impress them with with the fake version of who we are. We would be surprised how much more receptive other people would be if we were just more honest.
Yeah.
And you find certain individuals as well, they'll give you, advance notice for certain things, 6 months from now, this is going to happen, or 3 months from now, this is going to happen. And you might have enough time to prepare, that's okay. But it could still be that your finances are just not there. And if they're, in my view, if they're truly someone who values you, they don't want you to not eat for 3 nights because you had to give them a gift. I think just the practical side of it, I think, is important too. So it was a big lesson for me to say, you've got to be honest. If they had gotten upset, I would have been okay with it, because at least I still stayed on track with my goals. But surprisingly, they supported me. And now I've gotten it down. I have another friend who secretly got married, and she told me last week, I'm like, well, if it was a secret, you gotta wait. You gotta wait. I couldn't have put you on the budget. Sorry.
Yes, you will get your gift. You will get it, but within the time frame that definitely fits my budget. I thought that was so pertinent, and I think it's important for any young person that's listening in, or for anyone that is that is finding that they're in a financial strain, or they're trying to dig themselves out, or they're trying to right size their budgeting process. I think that's something very important for them to hear. And also, it's a good measurement of your friendship, of your associates too. If you explain yourself clearly, and they're still upset, as you said, you're okay with it, but then you'd have to ponder where the space that person is coming from, and probably question, okay, probably we need to talk about budgeting with this friend. But Isabel, this was such an informative chat. I absolutely need you to come back. I know we just scraped just the top of it. I feel like we need to break things down for people that are just going into the world, those that are heading into the world within this financial strained time. And for those that are, probably in the middle of, just a little bit of a financial challenge, I find that, people find themselves in these situations without even realizing it. Just as you were talking about budget and buying gifts, people are still going on vacation back then, in probably pre-2020, on a credit card, and pay for it over time. So I just think it would be great to have you back, just to continue to encourage individuals that are trying to, if fire being on that financial independence, retire early, even if it's that course, that path that they're on. I think it's incredible for us to go ahead and talk about that. So thank you so much for your time and your knowledge. And I know you've done a lot of research and dug into things to be able to speak so eloquently about it. And we do value that time. I am going to go ahead and have you go ahead and express your thanks for your audience that's here right now. If you want to just introduce the names that are here and who they are before we close out.
I want to say a huge thank you to you, Candice. I've enjoyed listening to some of your previous interviews. Certainly looking forward and wishing you success as you go forward. And absolutely happy to come back at another convenient time and we pick up the discussion. I'm not going to put my friends and family on the spot.
We can see them on the screen though. We see Sarah and Franklin and Ronald and
A huge thank you to all of them, and especially I would definitely just call out the Queen, who's my mom, Madam Essie, just to say a huge thank you to her, because she taught us from the time that we were young to try to do our best and managing not just our own finances, but also to be of service to others. And so all of that comes from all of that wealth of knowledge. So thank you so much, Candice, and we'll talk again in future, and have a great day, everyone.
Absolutely. And I will shout out my mother as well, who is a fantastic example. I think she's the first one that I heard distinctly say, do not have one source of income. And she represents that so well. So a shout out to all the mothers as well. Thanks again, everyone, for joining. We really appreciate your time. I see you're applauding. Isabel, thanks so much for being here, for supporting her. And it was such a wonderful pleasure having you on this episode of In the Circle. Until next time, take care. Bye.
Bye bye.